Good morning and welcome to NorCal PTAC's webinar, Doing Business with the Defense Microelectronics Activity, the DMEA, in partnership with the DMEA. My name is James Forrest. I am a procurement specialist with NorCal PTAC, and we have Kristen Ingebretsen, the DoD OSBP component director with the Defense Microelectronics Activity. And so Kristen's going to take it over in just a second and go through how to do business with them and give you a lot of useful information. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about NorCal PTAC. It stands for the Northern California Procurement Technical Assistance Center. We're going to get a lot of acronyms in the government contracting workplace. If you're not used to that yet, you will be getting into it. So basically, we are one center among many across the country, all independently operated, but under the same funding agreement. And our purpose is to help small businesses mostly, but businesses in general, win government contracts, to compete and succeed in the government market. And the way that we do that was with three basic core services. We have one-on-one counseling, custom bid matching, and resources and trainings. The way we do one-on-one counseling, we have a small team of procurement specialists, including myself, who are trained and experts in different areas of government contracting. And so if you would like to get into government contracting, whether that means we're responding to bids from city, county, state, tribal, utility, and of course, federal level, then this is something we can help out with. We don't help with things like funding or startup assistance, business plans, website review. Those sort of things you want to talk to your small business development center if you're eligible for them. But we really laser focus on contracting. So if you're trying to respond to bids, you're trying to get your registrations like in sam.gov or Cal eProcure, then we are going to be a great resource for that. We are totally free. We don't charge anything for our client services. All you have to do is sign up on our website and submit an application, and we'll get back to you within a few business days. If you do sign up and become a client, you're eligible for custom bid matching. What that is we have this software platform. Basically, we pay for it and we offer it to you for free. And what it does is it scours a number of different databases, and it'll get all the open federal contracts and California contracts and a lot of the local ones too. And if it matches the criteria that you work out with your procurement specialist, describes what you sell, then it will send those matches, these open bids or RFQs, RFPs, RFIs, into your inbox every day. So you can wake up and check your email and see, oh, can I bid on this? Does this make sense? Is this in my area? Can I afford this? So that's a nice, really useful tool. And the third thing we offer to everyone, you don't have to be a client, is resources and training. So we're putting on a webinar today. This is an example of the kind of trainings that we like to put on a regular basis. So you can find all of that on our website, norcalptac.org. Future events are on our calendar. This is our last event of the year, so we'll see you in January if you want to come to future ones. In order to be a client, you do have to have an established business, and you need that business to have a primary location in our service area. And you can see over here, that's our service area on the map, the green counties in Northern California. If you're outside of that service area, there's a second link here, aptac-us.org/findaptac. And that's going to be your resource for finding a nice long list of PTAC centers across the country. So you can just scroll down, find your state, and then find your county and reach out to whoever's there. So that's it. Feel free to reach out to us. There's our phone number, our email address on the bottom, and we are very happy to help. With our help, our clients won more than $500 million in 2021, and we're looking forward to exceeding that number in 2022. If you want help, you've come to the right place. All right, so let's go ahead and hand things over to Kristen in just a second. Just once again, feel free to use the Q&A function if you have any questions. Feel free to use the chat. We might drop some links in there. And just a reminder that the recording as well as the slides will be sent to everyone. And it's also going to be uploaded to our website under the resources tab under webinars. So it'll live there forever in perpetuity. All right, so I'm going to hand things over, like I mentioned, to Kristen Ingebretsen. Kristen is the DoD OSBP Component Director, the Defense Microelectronics Activity. Kristen, please take it away, and best of luck.
Thank you, James. You don't have to hover on that slide. People can read that later. Just a little bit about me and my career. Been with the small business community doing federal contracting in different capacities for about 27 years. Actually, not 27 years. I take that back. That's 27 years total with the federal government. The last 15 or 16 focusing on contracting. But enough about me. Again, Kristen Ingebretson. I'm the DMEA's DoD component, OSBP component director. I know it's a mouthful for me. I work in the small business office at the Defense Microelectronics Activity. And James mentioned this is their PTAC's last event of the year. It's my first public training of the year because we go by fiscal year. So if you're not familiar with that and you want to work with the feds, get familiar. We start our year on October 1 as the first quarter, and it ends on September 30th. Go ahead to the next slide, please. All right, so a little overview about what DMEA is, who we are, what we do. We are a federal research and development, or R&D laboratory facility. DMEA was established in March of 1997 by the Deputy Secretary of Defense for DoD. We are the Center of Excellence for Microelectronics, Technology Acquisition, Transformation, and Support. So we have a very unique mission at DMEA. A lot of what we do gets done in-house, but we do outsource, obviously, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the slides. DMEA's mission is to deliver microelectronic solutions to meet the needs of the DoD. And we have a cadre of professionals. We have many electronics engineers that are on staff, and they provide critical products, services, and expertise to support defense operations and deliver weapon systems readiness. They also ensure sustainment of legacy capabilities to offer a cost-effective alternative throughout the service of a wide range of weapon systems. So these are a lot of smart guys. And a big part of what they do is reverse engineer in order to minimize or even remove obsolete chips, or chips from being obsolete in our different warfighter systems. Next slide, please. All right, so I covered the mission. That's our mission. The mission of my office, the Office of Small Business Programs, aligns with the DMEA mission, whereas I'm in direct, or my office is in direct, and it's just me, office in direct support of DoD's needs. And I do that by advocating to you, small businesses, or for you, that help contribute to national security and economic power to our nation in the area of microelectronics. So there's DMEA's vision, where we want to be the trusted technical source for microelectronic solutions within the DoD. And again, the OSBP office, Small Business Office vision aligns with that. And in regards, or in respect to small businesses, my mission, or my vision, my goal, objective is to help maximize opportunities for small business through innovation and advanced technology microelectronic solutions. Next slide, please. All right, so what do we buy? We buy a lot of things. One of the biggest things we buy is that R&D stuff, the technology stuff that's really in a class of its own. However, we also buy software maintenance, licenses, laptops, things of that nature, facility support. So we have a building over on McClellan, and so everything that supports that facility, we need to contract that out. And I don't have our forecast just yet. It's going through, we have to go through a public release process. Laura's got to look at it, everybody else. But once that's available, I'll make sure that James has it and he can send it out to all of you, because you'll see we do have our facility support contract is renewing in this coming year. So you'll have that information on which quarter and the order of magnitude. So the dollar value on that. Okay, next slide. All right, so there's a list of our top NAICS codes, and I pulled that out of SAM.gov, they have a data reports tool if you've been in there. And hopefully you've been in there and looking for opportunities, but that's where I got this information. And basically what this depicts is where we have the most spend. So you'll see at the top, it's with engineering services, 541330. Just a little caveat there. Most of that is going to our large primes that are on one of our large IDIQ vehicles, which I'll talk about later. About 80% of our spend goes to that contract. However, they're really great about subcontracting. They hit their goals out of the park every single year. So we do have subcontracting opportunities for small businesses. And so let's just read down that list. We also procure, as you see at the bottom, under a whole other list of NAICS codes. Okay, next slide. All right, so small business contracting goals. And if you've been doing federal government contracting for a while or taken some of the PTAC's federal workshops, you'll know that the government, in accordance with the FAR, that's the Federal Acquisition Regulation, there's the reference there if you want to look it up, we're supposed to provide the maximum practical opportunity in our acquisitions to small businesses and all of the socioeconomic categories you can see listed there. So we actually do look at veteran-owned small business, although it's not one of the ones you'll see below as one that has a goal assigned to it. But with that, we do have a goal for service-disabled veteran-owned, hub zone, small disadvantaged business, and that includes the 8A program, if you're familiar with that, and women-owned small business concerns. Also, these concerns, these small businesses and socioeconomic categories must have maximum practicable, excuse me, hard for me to say, opportunity to participate as subcontractors, as I mentioned, as well as primes. So there's the statutory goals that Congress sets. You'll see there 23% overall for small business. And then on down the line, of note there, in this last year, 2022, FY 2022, remember the federal year starts October 31st and September 30th, the SDB goal jumped from 5% up to 11%, and going forward will increase until we get to 2025, and the ultimate goal there will be 15%. So take note there, if you're an SDB, or even if you qualify and you haven't self-certified as an SDB in SAM, make sure you do. If you need some help with that, reach out to James at the PTAC and he can make sure that you check that correct box there. Because we have a goal to meet, a goal much greater than it ever has been, and that's DoD-wide. You'll see DMEA's goals are a little bit different than the DoD-wide goals. So yeah, get that box checked, and if you're eligible for 8A, talk to James about that as well, and he can help you get certified for the 8A program. All right, so at the bottom there, I just want to kind of highlight this. Agency goals and statutory goals are not always the same. And you're going to see that on the next slide when we get there. The SBA works with each agency. So they actually directly work with the DoD, and then they negotiate with us, each of their components and services. They work with each agency to establish goals that provide small businesses the maximum opportunity to win federal prime contracts, given that agency's procurement needs. So it's not going to be the same for everybody. Definitely not for DMEA. We're very small. We're very niche-y. Therefore, our goals are quite different, as you'll see. And you can switch to the next slide, please, James. All right. So at the bottom, there are our goal achievements. Well, actually, I don't have our new goal on there. We just got our new goal for this year. But there's our goal achievements. So as you can see, they're pretty low. And that's for overall small business. And the only thing we negotiate with DoD is small business and SDB. I can tell you that our small business goal for this year has increased a little bit from 2.5 to 2.7. SDB, I don't recall. But yeah, my whole message here is it's different for everybody. DoD wide is going to be more aligned with what you saw on the previous page. DMEA, just due to the nature of what we do procure, will be different. You can see how the numbers at the top too, how they're so much different for DoD wide and us. We're little fish in a big pond. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so for DMEA's FY23, which we're in now, opportunities, the best thing to do is to go to sam.gov, and you can even type DMEA in the search window and will come up. We don't have a lot out there. We never do at any one given time, but that's a good way to find us. Or if you want to search by agency code, we are 9771, and I think I have that on a following slide. Another thing you do, and I mentioned our annual procurement forecast, which isn't quite ready for public release, but when it is, I will provide it to James, and then going forward, small businesses can contact me via email and request that, and I will send it via email. So subcontracting opportunities. I talked about that big idea queue that we have. It's called the Advanced Technology Support Program. We're in the 5th generation, but it's number 4 because you have a base. So we have a full and open. That's with all the large prime contractors you see there. It is a 10-year. It has a 10-year ordering period, a max ceiling of 17.5 billion, so very large. And we use that with other services to provide them so that they're our customers with what they need. There's the contractors there, as you can see. If you want more information on this, I do have information that I can read off, but best thing to do is just Google it and you can find out more about what we procure under that contract and what our large primes there will be looking for in their subcontractors. And I have a slide too that you'll get these slides. So if you don't have a hyperlink to it, I have links to every single one of these primes supplier diversity pages. They each call it something different, but you can go there and register to become one of their suppliers or vendors, and you know, reach out to them as a sub to do business with the federal government. There's also a small business component to the ATSP4 contracting vehicle. That's with teledevices, much smaller ceiling, as you can see there, 800 million. Again, same goes with them. Even though they're a small business, you can reach out to them as a subcontractor. Next slide, please. Oh, you know, go ahead to the next slide, but I did want to mention, I had a note here. So we have more than that for subcontracting opportunities. Let me see my notes. Let me get to my notes. So for our IT related supplies and services, right now, all of our contracts, we're not renewing any of them. They're kind of mid-cycle. Some of them may be nearing the end, but they are all with small businesses as well. So if you're interested in being a subcontractor to any of those small businesses, please reach out to me and I'll send you an email of who those companies are. And again, you can reach out to them for subcontracting opportunities. All right, next slide. Oh no, stay there, sorry. That's just a visual depiction of that ATSP4 contract. And again, the prime contractors, and then just a depiction of some of the programs that that contract supports. All right, next slide. All right, so there's that slide that I told you about. Hyperlinks to each of our large prime, DoD primes that you can go register as a subcontractor with them, get on their list and start marketing to them as well as federal agencies. All right, next slide. All right, so DMEA, we're one of 14, I think it's still 14, DoD agencies that administer the SBIR program, and SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research. STTR is Small Business Technology Transfer Program. So again, because of what we do, heavy in R&D, we've got this program that we're looking for small businesses to satisfy or help us come up with solutions to some of our microelectronics issues. And so a little bit about these programs: highly competitive, they're awards based, and they're to encourage small businesses to engage in research and development with the potential for commercialization. So it's not just a, there are different phases, and I'll go into those in a little bit. There are phases where the product is a study or prototype, but the ultimate goal here is to get that product to market. Let's see a little bit more about it. It enables small businesses to explore their technological potential and provides the incentive to profit from it due to commercialization. STTR is a little bit different from SBIR in that the small business works with a research institution, could be a university, or other type of research institution, and they do that in phase 1 and phase 2. And again, I'll cover those in the preceding or following slides rather. This is an SBA program. They serve as the coordinating agency, and they direct implementation of that the SBIR program. They review the progress and the report annually to Congress. Next slide. Okay, so program details for SBIR. This is all relative to DMEA. Every agency has a different budget, different mission, obviously. So we are small potatoes, not kind of small potatoes. We are small potatoes when it comes to this. We average, and it fluctuates, about a $6.6 million budget each year. We're on a 2-year cycle, so our spend, we can carry over. For example, we're carrying over 22 now, and then when 23, after the continuing resolution gets resolved, we'll add our 23 funds to that, and we can use that until the next year, and then 22 gets cut off. So anyway, we're on a 2-year cycle for that. So we have, once we get our funding for 23, you'll see that number go up. We usually participate, DMEA, in the first BAA cycle, which is coming up. This one is 23.1 for SBIR and 23.A for STTR. And the pre-release period starts 11 January, and that is when our topics, and I'll show you some of our past topics, are released onto a public DoD website. It's called DSIP, stands for Defense SBIR Innovative Portal. So you can go there 11 January, see what our topics are, and you can decide if you want to propose on those. And at that time too, you can have conversations with what we call the TPOCs, the technical point of contacts. And those are the guys that actually wrote the topics that are looking for a solution. So you can have an email or telephone conversation with them for that period. And then 2 weeks before the open period, you no longer can communicate with them. That one-on-one communication closes, and then BAA open period, that is when the solicitation, if you will, we call it the BAA, is actually open for proposals to be received. They must be received by 8 March, that's the closing date. And then from there on, our TPOCs evaluate those when we decide which ones are the best and which ones we want to fund. We average about 2 to 3, and this is an average based over the last, I think we've been doing this program since 2017. So going forward, I can't tell you because we haven't released them yet, but it may increase, it may decrease, but on average, we do 2 to 3 phase 1 SBIR topics and 1 STTR topic every year. Let's see. As I mentioned, our technical personnel develop the topics. They address a defined technological requirement, and they're prioritized with preferences to topics that lead to manufacturing opportunities at DMEA and commercialization, as I mentioned. So we don't want to throw our money at things that we don't think are going to get past the study phase and have the potential to be commercialized. And ultimately, the goal is to grow the defense industrial base. At this time, unsolicited proposals are not accepted. However, the program was just reauthorized. In fact, there was a delay in it, but the new act that reauthorized it, there is a provision in there to have each agency accept one unsolicited proposal or a topic that is derived from a small business. We're not going to do it in-house. So that's coming down the pike. We don't have the program in place yet, but more to come on that. Next slide, please. All right, so here are the phases. Phase one, there's 3 phases. So phase one, the goal of phase one is to determine scientific, technical, and commercial merit and feasibility of a particular concept. We can award up to $197,283, so that we can't exceed that limit. The period of performance is 6 months. That's both for SBIR sitter, if I didn't say that. There's what a proposal consists of, so you get an idea of what you would have to put into that and submit. And then the product there is a feasibility study. So that's for phase one. Again, we don't want to choose things that are going to stop there, unless, of course, we think it has a potential. And once the small business gets rolling and they run into issues where they just can't advance any further, then of course we're not going to go into a phase two. The phase two, that is to further develop the efforts from phase one. And only phase one awardees are invited to submit a proposal. So for phase two, unless it's a direct to phase two, and I'll talk about those in another slide, only phase one awardees are invited to submit. And the value of those increases, as you can see, at about 1.3 mil. And they have a 2-month period of performance. You're going to submit the same 6 proposal volumes as you do in phase one. The final product there is a prototype. All right, next slide. All right, so these are the other offshoots of the phase two. Phase two enhancement, and the goal of that is to encourage transition of SBIR technology into DoD systems. It provides a 1-year extension on the existing phase two, and up to $550K of SBIR sitter funds. However, the catch there is the small business must come up with their own matching funds that are non-SBIR. So you could, use your own funds, get an investor, or you could even get a federal agency that is really interested in development of the topic to provide money as well, as long as it doesn't come from a SBIR source. And then I mentioned the direct to phase two. Whoops. So that is one where the feasibility study can be proven. And we do post these. We'll have some coming up, I think, that they're going to go directly phase two, but the small business is going to have to prove that the feasibility study was done before we'll accept the proposal. Let's see. So it says there, phase one milestones must be completed. Oh, using and that's another one, using non-SBIR sitter funds. So for that, you've got to show that you've got a feasibility study, but you've done it using funds of your own, or again, as I mentioned before, from another investor or even from a federal agency, but as long as they're non-SBIR, you can propose on it. Contract award amount is the same as the initial phase two. So that was the 1.3 million for a POP or a period of performance for 24 months. Next slide. All right, so the ultimate goal is to get to phase three. This is the commercialization phase, where it's been developed as a prototype and proven out, and we're going to give you money. It's going to be non-SBIR money, so it'll come from a different source to go out and manufacture. For us, it would be manufacture the final product. Again, I mentioned not funded by SBIR sitter funds, may be privately funded or come from another government source, may involve follow-on R&D or production contracts for products, processes, or services intended for use by the U.S. government. Right, next slide. All right, just a little depiction, a little flow chart of phase 1, 2, and 3. The details in there, again, summarize what I told you earlier with the addition of how many awards we average per year. So phase 1, and again, we're looking back to about 2017, we've done about 5 to 10 awards a year. Phase 2, which is the prototype phase, that's the product that we're looking for, we do typically 2 to 4 awards per year. And phase 3, commercialization, we've done 4 awards to date. The arrows that are pointing down, we've done 1 direct to phase 2 award. We did that last year, and then we're currently working on a phase 2 enhancement. Next slide, please. All right, so that gives you an idea of our past topics. Again, all in the microelectronics arena. I'll just let you read through those. And again, you have the slide so you can reference it. And you can go and see what the topics, again, it's a solicitation. So it almost be if you're familiar with the PWS or SAO, it gives you what we're looking for and what you've got to respond to. So you can go to the DoD SBIR Sitter DSIP portal and look up each of these topics and get further information about it to see what kind of things it is that we traditionally look for. All right, next slide. All right, so this is, I kind of go into my doing business with the federal government 101 after all of that stuff, because that's what I used to do. I used to work for the SBA. And did that on a regular basis with the PTACs. So what you need to do first, DMEA, as I mentioned, we're very unique, very niche-y. So do your homework. I say go to our website. However, if you've been there, it is under construction. We do have just a mission brief put up right now. It doesn't give a lot of information about us, but we are working on that. Should have something out this fiscal year. So when that's up and running, it's a really good resource to go to. And this applies for any federal agency. Go to their website, do some research, see who they are, what they do, what they buy, how to do business with them. You need to do that before you even start marketing to a federal agency. You can look for their past awards a few places. The first one I mentioned there is FPDS, or the Federal Procurement Data System, and then NG, Next Generation. So that's all awarded contracts, and you can do some, actually that's changed a little bit. So they moved a lot of the reporting part of that, the ad hoc, over to SAM. So you can go over to SAM and really do some drilling down. But here they have an easy search, and you can go in, maybe type in a NAICS code in the easy search. If you know a contract number, put it in there. You can even put DMEA, or Defense Microelectronics Activity, in the easy search and see what comes up. So you can do some research there. You can also look to usaspending.gov. That is populated by FPDS. So it's going to be same information, just formatted and presented differently. And then, of course, I mentioned the SAM contract data reports. That's where FPDS moved the reporting. I did mention this earlier. And when you're in SAM, you can use DMEA, or Defense Microelectronics Activity, or 9771. We're going to come up either way. And when you're doing searches in SAM, I mean, you can look at the archive stuff, so what we've done in the past or current. That's another way to look at our past contracts and then what we have out there currently. I mentioned this earlier, searching for opportunities with us. You're going to do that in SAM. And then once I get the annual procurement forecast handout ready, I'll send it to James, and then in the future, small businesses can email me for a copy of that. So you're doing your research. And some other things you should ask yourself are, do you have government contracting experience? And it's not a bad thing if you don't, but it does help. And even, with the federal government, if you have state, local, any kind of public sector contracting under your belt, that helps, or even in the commercial world. But, ask yourself that. Do you have the experience, or do you have somebody that maybe can mentor you and help you in that area? Do you have adequate cash flow? That's important. Oftentimes, if you're awarded a government contract, you may have to float it for a while until you get paid. So do you have enough cash in the bank to do that? Or even a way to get a loan, things of that nature you have to take into consideration. Depending on the kind of contract you're looking at, do you have the inventory to support it, the working capital, and if it's construction, which DMEA, we don't do a lot, if any, construction. I mean, we do the facility support stuff, which has a lot of the specialty trade. But if it's a construction contract, you have to have ample bonding because the federal government does require bonding. Next slide, please. Oh, fancy. Yes, if your answer was yes, okay, let's go from there. I think just click to the next one. All right. All right, so if you answered yes there, then it's time to move on and get registered in SAM, and also make sure you paid attention to your SBA profile. Some people miss that. So of course, sam.gov, you're gonna wanna get your NAICS codes all identified first. You can do that by going to census.gov and typing in keywords for whatever industry you're in. And you can have more than one. You do have a primary, so that's where you do most of your work, make most of your revenues, and then you can add as many as you can support after that. You're going to put those in SAM. It used to be you had to get a DUNS number. That's gone away, thank goodness. And so that takes away one step. SAM will assign you what they're calling a unique entity ID, UEI. And when you're in there and you're filling in all the blanks, just know, adding your NAICS codes, that kind of thing, and checking if you're an SDB, if you qualify, checking the box for SDB to self-certify. You're going to come to a page and the system will identify you as a small business based on what you put in for your revenues and your NAICS codes. It'll ask you if you want to update, and I forget the exact terminology, but I think it's called SBA supplemental page. That's what it is. So you'll get to a page that's titled SBA supplemental page. You'll see SBA's logo. If it hasn't changed, I haven't been in there in a while. You'll click on that and that'll take you into SBA land. And that's your SBA profile that's in the dynamic small business search. Make sure you fill that out. Some of it's pre-populated with information from SAM, but there are places for you to put the capabilities narrative. Fill that out, really important. Maybe special equipment, certifications you might have, because contracting shops, definitely small business specialists, folks like me, we go into the database there and search for small businesses. So very important that you have that filled out and maximized or optimized. And again, the PTAC can help you with that. But it is one tool that we use. So definitely take advantage of it. It's free. Everything's free with the federal, almost everything's free with the federal government. Let's see. So you've done all that. Make sure you get certified in any of the SBA certifications that you qualify for. A lot of them are going to formal certifications. So 8A I mentioned earlier, that's a business development program of 9 years that the SBA runs. And there's certain qualifications, a little bit harder to get into than some of the other ones. I'm not going to go into the full spiel there. So that's a formal, as well as hub zone. That is based on where your business is located, has to be in a hub zone, and 35% of your employees must live in a hub zone. Doesn't have to be the hub zone where your office is located. So that's another formal certification. Woman-owned small business is a formal certification, and there's a subset, economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business. Let's see. Service disabled veteran-owned small is currently a self-certification. However, it's moving towards formal certification. I think you have a year before you have to formally certify for that. So make sure you're going to SBA's website and looking to see what it is you need to do if you're a service disabled vet to maintain your eligibility. It's moving away from the Veteran Administration. They used to do that certification for vets and service disabled vets, but the SBA is taking that over. And so it will no longer be a self-certification. The only self-certification, if I'm thinking right, that's going to be left is that SDB. So, make sure you check that box if you qualify for that one. Let's see. I always put this in here, and I think it's becoming less and less of a thing, but make sure you accept government purchase cards. Those are our credit cards. A lot of smaller items, anything under there's a threshold there, anything under 10K, and that's for supplies and services. And then you've got other thresholds for construction. I think it's 2,500, 2,000 for another one. I can't remember on all right now. But anyway, my point here is the government buys billions with a B of dollars worth of supplies, services, construction on government credit cards every year. So make sure you can accept one. And when I used to work for the Bureau of Reclamation, if you had a PayPal account that accepts credit cards, they would even pay for that fee. So just look into it, make sure you accept a credit card. This is my whole point there. This really is, I'm kind of going on to marketing your business. Doesn't really belong on this slide, but that's okay. Anyway, just this for me is, doesn't need to be said, but sometimes it does. Make sure you're developing quality marketing materials. I know we're online these days and this doesn't come as much into play, but hopefully we get back out where we're doing face-to-face events. But anyway, I talked about the SBA profile, dynamic small business search. That's free to you. Just make sure you've got that filled out, optimized. Here's the physical, and this can be sent electronically, is your capability statement. If you're not familiar with that, again, get with the PTAC. They can help you create one of those, and it should be tailored for the federal government. We look at things differently than other public agencies. We're looking at NAICS codes and things of that nature, your certifications. There's one of my email addresses. So that email will come to me. That's for the small business office. So you can send me your capability statement. And just make sure on there, because I've noticed since they switched over to UEIs, a lot of people are still putting their DUNS number on there. And I can't find you with the DUNS number anymore. I can find you with the UEI and a cage code. So either one of those works. Make sure you've got your NAICS codes on there, because I have a vendor database, small business vendor database, and that's how I'm going to file your capability statement. I'm going to file it by all of your NAICS codes. You get a place, your capability statement gets dropped into each NAICS code folder that you have on your capability statement. So that's important to me and many other federal agencies, because that's how we look at businesses, is with that NAICS code versus what your industry is. So important to keep that there or put that on there. Again, when we start meeting face-to-face, your business cards, right now, we're doing it all electronically for the most part. And then you need to have a website. Just make sure that it's professional. You don't have broken links, that kind of thing, because that does reflect, believe it or not, on your business. Next slide. All right, marketing your small business to the federal government. So that top link there is how to do business with DoD as a whole, and a lot of good tips there on how to do business with DoD agencies. Of course, each agency, DoD agency component service, they're going to have their own small business page. DMEA, we're working on ours, so that's coming. But that's the overarching website you can go to, and then drill down to each agency, DoD agency that you decide to market to see how they do business, because we all, even though we're all under DoD's umbrella, we all do it differently. Let's see, participate in procurement related events. I put DoD's calendar of events on there. Again, go to your different agencies, even your different DoD agencies and civilian agencies. Go to their websites, look at their calendars. I've noticed that the PTACs will put different agencies' events on their calendars as well. So look at the PTAC's calendar too. Let's see, look for prime I've covered this, but and again, look for prime contracting opportunities on SAM. That's the information for DMEA, of course, different for everybody. Respond when you're in SAM. Respond to sources sought notices and pre-solicitation notices. Super important for our contracting officers that are, for us, it's the contract specialists that are doing market research. They're putting those sources sought notices out there to find out if there are enough qualified small businesses for them to set aside the contract. So if you don't respond, they can't set it aside. They need that supporting information. So please respond to those. If you don't know what it is, get with James at the PTAC or one of the counselors there, and they can help you with that. Pre-solicitation notices, sometimes they ask for a response, sometimes not. That's just letting you know that solicitation is coming down the pike. And sometimes we don't know at that point what we're going to set it aside for. So please respond to those as well. Just read the notice, but ask for a response, respond in kind. Don't give us anything more, anything less. That goes for the sources sought notice too. Let's see. So I talked about subcontracting opportunities. Again, there's a lot of money to be had in subcontracting, and that may be your niche in the federal contract arena is as a subcontractor. So you don't always have to be the prime, perfectly fine to be the subcontractor. So with that said, look for the prime contractors, DoD prime contractors, other agency prime contractors. SBA has a subnet where primes will post opportunities, so you can look there. You can go to sam.gov and look at a large business's SAM profile. And typically when you go to their point of contact page, you're going to find their government business POC. That's who you're going to want to market to. You can also go to their websites, find out who their small business liaison officer or diversity manager is, and that's who you would reach out to. Many of them have registration pages, like I showed you with the DoD primes that are on our ATSP4 contract. Go there, register as a small business, subcontractor, or supplier. And many of them too, just like the federal government, will have outreach events and they'll post them on their website. So, you want to go to those either, virtually, or if they have face-to-face events, to just get yourself out there and build relationships. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're building relationships with primes and with the federal agencies. Next slide, please. All right, I think we're getting near the end. So here are some resources for small business help, government help, technical assistance, we call it, SBA.gov. I'll just let you read down the list. There's the main site for the PTACs, a PTAC, but of course you've got the NorCals. And I don't know if James, I don't think you said anything, but you've been rebranded. The DoD is taking over that program, and you'll see, I think they're keeping PTAC for at least this fiscal year, but near the end of the fiscal year, you start seeing the term Apex Accelerator for the PTACs.
The rumors are true. Yeah, we haven't made any sort of announcement, but it's true.
Okay. Yeah. No, we got something from the DoD OSBP, so it's coming. But they said, probably won't see a change until later this year, if even this year. And what I'm talking about this year is the fiscal year, so we're into 23. All right, next slide. And on that last slide too, I should mention the point of that slide is there are a lot of resources out there that can assist you. I think everyone I showed on there isn't going to cost you a thing. So yeah, that's the net message. There is help. You just got to reach out, right? Okay, last slide. And that's me. That's my direct email, so you can use that one, or there was the one for the small business office on the other page. And with that, I think the last slide just says questions. Any questions? Oh, you have
Perfect.
a question.
Well, thank you so much, Kristen. That was a great presentation. You focused on the DMA, but everyone here also got a good introduction to federal contracting presentation as well. I thought that was really comprehensive, and so much of the advice that you gave is broadly applicable for federal contracting. So really appreciated that and thought it was very well done. We do have a couple questions here. Manveer is asking about a link. At one point you were talking about the SBIR, STTR website, and they were asking about a link. I'm not sure exactly what link you mentioned. I don't remember exactly. Do you know which one they're referring to?
Yeah, so the best thing to do, I don't, the link would be long. So just go and Google DoD SBIR Program. And that'll bring you to, it's called DSIP, which stands for Defense SBIR Innovation Portal.
SBIR?
SBIR, well, we call it SBIR. I noticed that other agencies, even PTACs, SBIR, STTR. So the S in DSIP is SBIR.
Okay, SBIR. So I'm not sure how to spell SBIR.
It's SBIR, STTR. Let me see if I can, actually I'm on my personal device, but let me see if I can grab it for you and put it in the chat.
So if you just want the DoD SBIR website, I can certainly drop that in the chat right now. Is that just the general website you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's DoD SBIR STTR .mil.
Great. All right. Got that. I will drop that. I'll drop that in the chat right now.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll drop it in the chat. I'll also type it as an answer to that question there. So thank you, Manveer. Let me go ahead and just put that in there. Good question, Manveer. And then there was another question. They're curious about the hub zone certification, the historically underutilized business zone certification.
Right. Yeah. So for that, I said it's a formal certification. Best thing to do, you can get with the PTAC. They can help you, see if you're qualified, because that's what you want to determine first. But go to sba.gov/hub zone and do some research there. I haven't worked for the SBA in like 3 years now, so I know their programs change constantly, for the better. They're just trying to make it easier for the small businesses to get into the program, maintain the certification. But do some research there, see if you qualify. That would be one. And again, there's a hub zone map there. You're going to plug in your principal office. So that's where most of your employees are, where you're doing your work from. You can have little satellite offices, but do your principal office, plug in the address to include the zip, and it will tell you if you're in a hub zone or not in a hub zone. So that's qualification one. And then 35% of your employees must live in a hub zone. Doesn't have to be that hub zone. So again, you'd have to plug in their residence addresses to see if those qualify. And that's where a lot of the changes have happened. They're making it easier. And I don't know what the particulars are right now off the top of my head, but do some research on that. I think they only have to live there for 6 months, because it used to be they had to be in residency for longer. Or I think if they move out of the hub zone, you can still maintain your certification if they continue to work for you. Because the idea of the program is to help impoverished areas. And so if you've got employees that are living in these areas and you make it so that they can move, out and somewhere else, that's the goal of the program, that and creating jobs. But yeah, best thing to do, hub zone or sba.gov/hub zone, and look to see if you qualify. And from then there, you can get some help from the PTAC, or even, call your local SBA district office. And you can find that on the SBA's website too.
Great, thank you. That was very comprehensive. Yeah, and we can certainly help with Hub Zone certification, or really any of the federal certifications that Kristen's mentioned. And just about every link that Kristen put in there is something that we can help with as well. So do keep us in mind. And one final question here. Can you touch on how the DoD views doing LOIs with startups?
Okay, what was that acronym? LOI?
LOIs.
What does that stand for? I'm not familiar with that.
I am not sure. I was kind of hoping that you would. Letter of intent.
Views doing letter of intents with startups. You know, I can't speak to that honestly. So yeah, for us, I mean, what we're really looking for when we have a requirement, it is, you know, qualified businesses. And even if you're a startup and you can prove that maybe in your last job, your last position, you have the experience that it takes to perform on a contract, we're going to look at that. But certainly, I mean, if you're bidding on a contract, a letter of intent wouldn't hurt.
All right, great. Well, that's our last question here, and we are just about out of time. So let's just go to the thank you slide. And just a reminder, everyone's going to receive these slides. As you leave the presentation today, you should be redirected towards a very short anonymous survey you can fill out and let us know what you felt about today's presentation. Huge thanks to Kristen for putting this all together and reaching out to us for this event, and hope to see you at future events. And thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.